Hello, Doggy Agenda here. It has been a hot minute. Oh my goodness, I needed to take some opportunities to pull my energy inward, and I'm coming on the other side of it now, feeling very soft and flowy, and this is like what femininity feels like to me. One aspect of it, right? The really gentle aspect. And there has been something I've been wanting to speak to y'all about for a while, and if you follow me on Instagram, I put a little bit of snippets out of it on my story last week, or maybe the week before. I'm not really sure. And it's this vortex. But the topic is confrontation versus conflict, okay? Because we are going about our daily lives, right? And things come up within ourselves, within interactions with other people. And sometimes when we want to address these different things, there can be a bit of shying away because there's this view that if you speak about things that are uncomfortable to sit with, that it's conflict. And I'm here to share my take on that because that is what somebody brought to me actually when I was attempting, and I attempted several times over a series of a month to have the same conversation, and the response was something that I've seen before. And so I'm viewing the perspective from, the one-on-one and also the higher self, and putting all these pieces together. And as I'm watching this happen, I'm realizing that people associate confrontation with conflict, and they think that they're one and the same, and they're really not. Confrontation is only conflict when there is negativity brought to it. Because if you think about it, confrontation is good, right? Confrontation is what allows us to really look at things and to choose yes, no, maybe. It puts things on this platform, right, for us to really look at. And so confrontation could be, trying to have a conversation with somebody about different things that you would like to address, or it could be something as simple as confronting emotions within yourself. And what was happening is I've noticed that and this is for several different situations when confrontation is a topic, because you can confront somebody that you are interested in, right? Or have a business proposition for, or just like want to have a conversation with. And anxiousness can come up, or strength and courage can come up. Whenever there is an anxiousness energy coming up, what's happening is the body is being stressed. The adrenals are being like, whoa, I do not feel comfortable right now. And it's because you're reaching this area of the unknown, right? Because the choice comes up afterwards, whether it's you choosing to go confront somebody else as the confrontor, or you being confronted, And what also happens is when some folks are being confronted, regardless of whatever the topic is, they can get scared. And they can either recluse and get anxious inward, or it can combust outward, right? The whole fight or flight goes. And so what I had been witnessing was that fight or flight response. And, I'm there in each of these interactions, almost like an observer, like being very mindful and delicate about how I bring things up to try to avoid any potential triggers. Because, for me, when in this particular situation, the confrontation was for conflict resolution. And it was just like there was an energy abrasion that I didn't feel comfortable with. So I wanted to just bring it to light so we can have a conversation about it, to have a more compassionate approach to it and be conflict resolution based, right? And to really see just what are the options here. Like, I know how I'm feeling, but how is this other person feeling? And so, for me, the confrontation is a good thing because it means that there's going to be energy cleared up. And because these things weren't able to be expressed before, I was feeling dis-ease in my body, because if we choose not to confront things that are important, we're not expressing, it can manifest in your body as ailments. And the first way I noticed it was my throat chakra was blocked. I was doing a sound bath and I was trying to pull up these frequencies and it just wouldn't come out. And I remember being in the moment like, oh my goodness, I don't remember the last time this has happened. This is crazy. There's an energetic block right now on my throat chakra. Try to speak about it again the next week, nothing. The week after that, I start to feel like tickles in my throat. I'm like, oh wow, if we do not speak, then I'm going to get sick. I'm like, I feel it already. And so we try to have the conversation, and it did not actually be a conversation because they went directly into the fight or flight mode. And it was a fight mode where, I put the information on the table, just a small snippet, not even what the main thing was, just to try to ease into it, and immediately went into this defense and this whole narrative, and minutes are going by, and I'm sitting there witnessing this, wow, this person right here, the one that I was trying to have a conversation with, is gone. They are completely in their mind right now. And why does this happen? Why are people afraid of confrontation? And it has something to do with events that have happened in their past before, where maybe something of a similar nature was coming up, where they were confronted or they were trying to confront somebody, and they felt like they had to defend themselves, right? So the ego goes up, and it's all of these different things, and then at that point, when you're just spiraling into these fantasy realms, who is in control? Because I know when I was there, like I said, they were so far gone. And I remember thinking, how do I reel this person back? I know what's happening right now. They are having a trauma response. This should not ignite a big reaction like that. But something must have happened in their past, Traumas affect us, and then they continue to go on if we do not confront them, right? So maybe they weren't able to come and actually stay seated at the table for this conversation because their traumas were taking over, but it's because of those past traumas that they never confronted, right? And confronting something, even if you're not fully aware of what it is in you that needs to be confronted, all that you have to do in healing, really, all that you have to do is just be still. Just sit with yourself and allow things to come up, right? And don't attach a judgment to the things that come up, to yourself, to other people. Just look at it. Just look at the whole situation and then let it flutter by. And it can be a challenging thing sometimes, because sometimes these situations that come up, they have emotional charge to them, right? You feel some sort of way about it, but that's telling you a lot about yourself. It's telling you how you have been hurt before, and it's also a narrative, right? So you can change the narrative on how you want to exist going forward, because otherwise you're keeping that energy in your body and you're releasing signals and attracting more of those situations to you, right? It's only when we become aware of the signals that we're putting out, of the energies that are resonating in our body, that we can really start being like, no, I don't want this program to play anymore. I'm going to turn the dial, right? Like that's already happened before. And I had the opportunity after this, because we actually weren't able to talk about the really important things because they were so far gone, right? So the very next day, I come down extremely sick. And I remember, and this is it's still incredible to me, just being so grateful, like so happy that I was sick. And I've never felt that way. And throughout the sickness too, I was just so grateful. And in the past, right, whenever I would get sick, because like I was sick like fevers for 4 days, and I have 2 boys to take care of, and so it was a lot physically on me and energetically on me. Like my life force was drained, but I saw this as a great opportunity for an energetic purge, because after this situation unfolded in the manner that it did, I remember thinking like, feeling relief, one, that I was detached from the situation, but then also feeling like I need to cry, like I want to cry, but there was a blockage in me that was just like, I've been at my emotional quota already. It's like, I have no tears for this situation, but I do not want this energy to be trapped in me, because it's been trapped in me already, and I can feel the energy blockages in my body. So for the next day, for me to come down extremely ill and just be sat down for a good 4 days, I couldn't get out of bed, right? And the lingering days, and now with one of those lingering days, like I have more energy, I'm able to move around, I'm able to speak, and my mind can process other things in my environment. But for those days, like I couldn't read, I couldn't watch TV, like I don't have a TV, but like I couldn't watch movies or videos, I couldn't even listen to podcasts, like I could not intake any information. And I was so grateful for it, because things were coming up from that situation I was processing, and then another separate situation that I was processing, and I could just sit with it and feel what it was that I felt about those things, and watch it, and then just let it go. I didn't need to attach an extra narrative to it. There were even times where there are beings that would want me to talk about it, to just out of compassion, wanting to understand, and I was just like, I don't have the energy to give to it. It's not worth it. It is, and it was, and it's done. And it's not me being like, oh, I don't want to because it hurts so much. It's like, no, it's just, I've accepted it, and I've moved forward. And that was, the divine sitting me down with an illness to allow these things to come up so that I confront them. And it was the best sickness I've ever experienced. I never thought I would feel that way. And I remember even being in the moment and just being like, I have no life force, but I'm so happy. Like every day, so happy. And it could be all the extra cuddles I was getting from my sweet little darlings, and the opportunity to not do so much. The universe was very literally like, you can't do, and you're just being and resting, and I'm gonna do more of that today. But when other individuals, so yeah, like you can do it yourself or the divine will sit you down and do it, but then there's other individuals who will just keep walking around like this, and it will feel like they are stuck, right? Because these patterns just keep happening over and over again, and it can be difficult in the opposing party, seeing people stuck in these cycles and wanting to help, but then having to realize like that is not for you. You can be a mirror, a reflection, and hold that up. And like, these are things, right? It was for mirrors for everybody to come in contact with, but then it's for them. And then we go our separate ways. I'm sure see some notes that I have on here. Oh, and sometimes when these things are coming up, right, and you are confronting it, it's easy to allow yourself to get into a negative downward spiral and be like, woe is me, like why is this happening and all of this. And what I've found is really helpful is to go from the approach of gratitude, being like, wow, thank you, Source, for giving me all of these series of opportunities to be able to increase my discernment, right? Because I have the experience from these things, I now can use my third eye to be open to the flags, right? To navigate situations in the future with more clarity, because these things have happened before, And sometimes these things really hurt, but our egos, they don't want us to hurt anymore. So it catalogs that. And then you're able to be like, whoa, I've felt this before. I've seen this before. And this is how I choose something different, allowing those uncomfortable things to come up and not putting judgment on them, and not putting judgment on the beings that you're coming into contact with, even if they feel like they're stuck and you can see it, because you were there once before too. This was something that I was thinking about before when I was in the very beginning of the confrontation, right? And when I was witnessing these things, and it's like, why is there a reaction like this? And I reflected back on myself as like, oh, I have not always also like been in this mode of where I can just see a situation, like oversee it. I have been in that trauma response before. I used to be extremely sensitive. Like, I'm still extremely sensitive. I just navigate it differently, but sensitive to the point where somebody could come to me with a criticism, a critique, even just like being called on, right? And so the criticisms, I would like start bawling. I couldn't even absorb what was being given to me, because my body was just like go into this reaction of like, oh, I'm not good enough. It comes from the whole like people pleasing thing, and always like trying so hard, and realizing like, oh, nothing that I'm doing can appease, like none of it is working. And so those are things that I had to work through. And when I worked through it and I stopped being a people pleaser, then now I can come to situations and I can be confronted by something without spiraling. And even just, I remember in school, the confrontation of just being called on in class, right? I would always know the answers, right? It's the part of the people pleasing. I was like studying all the time. I always wanted to be right and all that. So I remember I would get called on, and even though I would know the answer, like I would get anxious inside, and I wouldn't be able to speak. And those were like all trauma things, because I had this overwhelming fear of being wrong and being made fun of. This happened once when I was in, and I know where that stemmed from. It stemmed from when I was in 6th grade, and my teacher, my science teacher, she held up a lock and a feather, and she dropped them. She was asking what I thought would hit the ground first, right? The lock or the feather. And I said the lock, and I got made fun of. Like, everybody laughed, and even she laughed. She's like, no, we just went over this. Like, these, no matter their weight, will hit the ground at the same time, right? So she goes and drops it, and of course the lock hits the ground first before the feather, because the feather catches air and all like this. And so I didn't quite understand what the lesson was. During that time, I was just using all my other cues of like, I know the feather is not going to fall straight down to the ground, right? But even though I knew all that stuff, I still had trauma from being made fun of, right? From the teacher laughing at me, from all of the kids in the class laughing. And even though I was right in the end, like, that still happened. And that carried on through my life up until I was in my 20s, right? I was extremely anxious whenever it would come to things, and I would still always strive to be like, make sure I know all the answers and all that. There's something else on here, a couple of things, and one of them is when you are going into a situation and you want to confront something, right? Take it at face value what people show you and how they're showing up. If somebody is going into one of these spirals and you feel like, oh, I don't know how I'm going to pull them up out of it, or they're so far gone that it's going to take a huge amount of energy and still they're stuck in that, like, take that information and run with it. Because if you keep trying to go into these modes of confrontation and they're not able to receive it, like, sometimes it's best to just cut your losses and don't allow yourself to get sucked into that energetic vacuum of sorts, because then you're just giving energy to a situation that might not be worth it. And that's really up for you to discern. I never want to say that it's not worth it to help somebody through the traumas that they're going through, but just be mindful of your energy budget. And if you have the allotments for that, then you can choose to do that. The other thing I have on here was, ew, you're not here to give others an ego boost. And I feel like coming into conversations with people sometimes where they are fine with being around until there's confrontation, and really it's like, well, what is the motive for that, right? Is it just because, like, it feels good to be around you, and when things are good then they're great, but then when things are a little uncertain and you want to talk about it, they're not there for it? Like, use that information too. It's like, where is your energy going? Are you being respected? Are you being valued? Are you being revered? Are you being held to the standard that you know that you deserve? And if that person wants to argue with you about it, then that is information as well. It's like, do you want to have to convince people of what you deserve? If they don't see it, they don't see it. It's next, fifth row, Jack. Don't you come back no more, no more, no more, no more. Wow, it's the first time I've sang since being like this. But those are just some thoughts that have been percolating and circulating and marinating, and I'm sure there's other words I can use. Today I felt like I got the last little bit of the sphere, to make the message really well-rounded, and I'm also able to speak a little bit longer. So with that, thank you lovelies for tuning in, for bearing with me, and thank you for healing, for doing the greatest work that you can. And it's evolving. It's allowing yourself to evolve, allowing the shadows to come up, and working towards being your authentic self without all the traumas, because when we work on ourselves, we are doing the greatest justice to the world around us, to the beings around us. We're showing them, hey, I'm not stuck in these things that have happened to me, and also I'm not going to hurt you because I don't want to. I don't want to hurt myself. I don't want to hurt people around me because I'm aware of the things that I'm doing and how they affect those that are in my sphere. So anyways, love you guys. Did I even say this? Oh, well, signing out. Daffy Agenda from @WeLightBeans and @figure.8.energy on Instagram. I'll see you guys soon.